Hello, in this video we're looking at an endgame build for Stranger of Paradise using the Cyclic Warrior as a caster. And there's different ways to go about this, but we're going to go about the HP damage route leaning heavily on Intellect. So there's going to be some timestamps in the description if you want to kind of jump around just to see things how they might happen on the world map if you're solo or in the Rift. And we do have a boss rush saved up in the Rift with some uncomfortable trials, so we'll give that a try towards the end of this video. But looking at the Cyclic Warrior, there's going to be some things we also do where we prioritize convenience and sustainability over damage. For example, Apocalypse Warrior does more damage, but uh, we don't have the ability to sustain that without Chaos Bringer or without weaving in physical attacks. So in this case, we're going to go with the Primal Warrior route. Every time that you trigger your job action, you also trigger Lightbringer. Just a minor heads up, even though that says stat bonus Spirit, because this is still elemental damage or magic damage, Intellect is going to be the main way we do HP damage. And so we are focused on HP damage, even if we end up breaking some enemies from time to time. So Primal Warrior, every time you use Chaos Rising, I might call it Solar Chaos, just because that's what I know it as. You trigger that. You also gain Lightbringer. By default, that's like 20 seconds worth of Lightbringer. So something that we also have is we have Cyclic Warrior 600%. Every time you trigger a Lightbringer, you also trigger a Soul Shield. And why you don't see this build before January 27th is because this was bugged and it got fixed on around that time. So this lets you your soul shields recover some regular MP, but they also build max MP based on your MP limit boost rate. And so how we get more of that MP limit boost rate is through Void Knight 120% and 50%. You increase your MP limit boost rate as well as master points. Some other things that help with increasing your max MP through a soul shield is specifically the interaction of Cyclic Warrior 600% with Evoker 120%. Now, nowhere does that say that it actually increases your max MP, and just due to an interaction with Cyclic Warrior 600%, it's a bug, got reported twice, nothing's happened, it's been a year, now it's a feature. So that builds up your max MP with and even restores your regular MP for some reason when you do it with Cyclic Warrior 600%. Another thing that's going to help us a little bit is the Sage 120%. You don't have to have Sage if you're willing to allocate some points into Soul Shield MP recovery, but the 120% and the 50% recover some Soul Shield regular MP, not max MP. So specific to this build, we want regular MP as well on the recovery. Now, another thing that's going to be helping us out is the Summoner 600%. It says it increases the potency of your primary summon's blessing. Well, right now, because this is an endgame build, I have the Leviathan. I had a Leviathan badge that I fused over to my accessory, and now I have this perpetual Leviathan's primary blessing. And just what Leviathan does, let me find someone. So Neon, just for the video purposes, at the bottom right corner, it says increases MP recovery and max MP gained on a successful soul shield or soul burst. And so now whatever that effect is, getting even more max MP and more MP recovery, and thanks to Summoner 600%, that's doubled. And it might seem like overkill, but there are trials such as max MP and MP recovery trials that will start to hurt us. Another thing that we have for convenience is Summoner 400% every time you do a soul shield, you refresh your buff duration just a little bit. And so every time we're using our job action, we're refreshing our buffs, and that's pretty convenient. Some other things that's going on here is the Solar Chaos or Chaos Rising consumes our max MP, and we have something. Uh, we have two things that also help us get max MP back. If I can just figure out my buttons, we have Black Mage 400%. It increases your MP limit boost rate based on the magic damage you deal. And so we're going to be casting constantly, and that's important. It does need to hit the enemy, and the way we're set up, we don't need this with if we don't have trials. But when we do have max MP and MP recovery trials, this is how we keep up with our max MP loss. We do need to hit the enemy with this though. Um, so that's great. Black Mage 400%. And then there's Black Mage 600% as a bonus. Every time you do a Soul Shield, you get more Intellect, and at the end of the day, that's going to be an extra 30 Intellect, so that's nice. Another thing that we have here is we want to reduce the cost of our Soul of Chaos. So right now it's 300 MP, or 3 bars of MP, and thanks to action ability MP cost, such as Samurai 120% and 50%, we reduce that a little bit. So the 16% by itself is not very much, but it helps. It absolutely does help. Another thing we have going on here is we have Lionheart, the accessory. And this could be swapped out in a few different ways. It could have been a Hermes sandal. Um, and if you do the Hermes sandal, then you have Knight 400% on your gear instead. But in this route, we use the Lionheart because it has Invincible. And Invincible lets you uh, it grants immunity to enemy attacks while Lightbringer is active. So Lightbringer, Dimension Bringer, Chaos Bringer, while it's active, you do not take HP damage from most sources. I think fall damage still counts. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. If you fall off a map into a hole, you might still lose HP. But other than that, you should not be losing HP. So, Lionheart. Now, Lightbringer duration also affects the length of like how much break gauge you lose when you get hit during Lionheart, as well as your damage mitigation. If you have a lot of mitigation, you're going to lose less break gauge when you get hit with Lionheart before trials are factored in. So there are things that completely screw your mitigation, such as Summon Tachi. That is a multiplicative damage taken. So, in addition to just, uh, in short, you're going to get hit harder, and it's going to eat your Lightbringer even faster with weaker attacks. So, even though it seems like, hey, you're invincible, I have Knight 400%, why not? Don't use Summon Tachi, unless there's just like, okay, the bosses are dying in one hit, I don't care. But if you really want to use something that increases your damage dealt, consider Bravery. As of January 27 and onward, it increases your damage the same amount as Summon Tachi, and it works on your allies too. It does cost a little bit more MP, but you're going to be refreshing your buff constantly, so you don't ever have to cast it a second time unless you die. Um, and as a bonus, you also refill your break gauge a little bit if you ever like just run out of Lightbringer, and your allies also get it too in case you're co-oping. So why do I say that? Invincible, there are some trials that go on, such as these enemy attacks deplete buffs trials, and that, as of January 27, that when you get hit, your Lightbringer also gets reduced, as well as your buffs. So that absolutely sucks. And the way we're going to deal with that is by using our job action even faster. We're going to, you might hit us and we lose some of our buff duration and we lose a crap load of our Lightbringer, but thanks to things like Void Knight 600%, when you're over a certain amount of MP, 400, just your max MP, not even your current MP, you get haste. So we're going to be hasted, so we get to use our job action faster. We refresh buffs faster. And then we also have Dragoon 400%, increases your attack speed during Lightbringer, Chaosbringer, Dimensionbringer. So we're even faster than before. Go faster, Barry. And then we have Lunatic, where you increase your attack speed at the cost of you can't recover break gauge naturally just through time. Uh, bravery still and bravery, sway back, refill break gauge, and those kinds of things still work. But uh, because we're going to be basically perma Lightbringer once we get started, we don't worry about that. And all that extra attack speed, the hope here is that we're going to be reapplying our Chaos Rising, our Lightbringer, and refreshing our buffs so often that normal attacks from bosses are not going to get us. But if we sit in like a Tri-Disaster or Dimension Zero, we're going to die. But outside of that, we're the enemy probably will not be attacking us fast enough to get rid of all of our buffs. There are, again, things you need to avoid, and the way we avoid them is going to be with the teleport command. We're going to zip around so that if we get caught in a Dimension Zero or a Tri-Disaster or um, what's the word called? The Jurassic Park Terminator Robocop machine thing. Uh, Gosh darn it. Death Machine. Yes. Death Machine. Uh, that we can kind of dodge around during Death Machine, blink around because it's not technically a dodge. Uh, that we teleport around until it's time to just like they make the mistake of putting a mustard bomb on the ground or they make the mistake of trying to charge at us. And then that's when we get in position and we start just doing earthquake spam until they die. Or until they stagger or death. One of those things. Semi worst case, we have Dimension Bringer, so that if we really need to slow down time and we find a good opening, we can slow the enemy down and start using our Chaos Rising Solar Chaos. Now, there's a bit of a risk with Dimension Bringer because you cannot refresh Light Bringer during Dimension Bringer. So you refresh your buffs, but there's going to be that small window of time between Dimension Bringer and Lightbringer where you have no protection. And you could go with Sentinel on a job that has HP stacked up, and that'll be your bridge between stuff. But we're going to risk it. Worst case, if we need to do another Dimension Bringer, we will. And thanks to all of our crap that we have together, Cyclic Warrior 600%, the Summoner 600%, the Evoker 120%, and the Void Knight 400%. Sorry, our Dimension Bringer won't cost as much if we had to use it just raw, and we might even get a lot of our max MP and MP refunded as a result of using it. But even more important, and why we end up using it is because, let me stop this description is really long, but the first thing that we really want is, while this ability is set, a successful soul shield will increase your dimension count. So every time we use our job action, we're getting a soul shield. We're getting a dimension count. And once our dimension counts are high enough, this is going to be a long duration, and it's not going to use very much max MP. So it's something that we're just building up passively just through attacking not passively. It's something we're building up just from attacking the enemy. And you could drop it. I say drop it on a phase 2 of a boss or as a boss is spawning. Because then you have a little bit of control or a window to refresh a regular Lightbringer before the end of the battle. But we'll see all that. And I realize this is going on for a long friggin' time without actually any combat. Uh, but the important thing is trying to make sure that we cover all the grounds in terms of explanation, because there are videos that you can look at and just reverse engineer what's going on. But this video assumes that you're not going to be just like, hey, I reverse engineered it. It doesn't work. Why? This is here's all the whys. This is why we're doing it. This kind of stuff. Let's see here. So, I realize I just bounced all over the friggin' place. But let's look at one more thing because this is an endgame build. I do have a badge. I'm sorry, I transferred a badge that had Perpetual Bahamut's primary blessing. And that gives you +1 stacks for every soul shield that you do, up to 20 soul shields. And thanks to Summoner 600%, that is now doubled. So I get +40 intellect at the end from that. And then as a result of the Black Mage 600%, just separately, I get +30 intellect from there. So an extra 70 intellect and then 40 spirit, which at this point is not very much, but that might help us a little bit in applying the elemental vulnerability to the enemy, and that'll help us deal more damage. But we're still on the Cyclic Warrior. Let's look at our gear and why some of the crap is the way it is. So, I'm sorry, let's look at our command abilities. Teleport to get around and avoid enemy attacks where we really need to get out of something that's hitting us constantly. The barrage is here just as a little bit of a extra damage boost. This could have been bravery. I just went with barrage. And if you're going with a break damage based Cyclic Warrior, that will be a very different build. But you could easily just go with like bravery or onslaught if you want to tap into a little bit of the break damage that this does. But the route that we're doing, as scary as this sounds, leaves a crap load of break damage on the table that we could be doing and we won't be. So even if we break something, that we're not actually a break damage build, and that's the scary part. Lunatic for the attack speed and Dimension Bringer for the reasons mentioned earlier. Looking at our gear effects, we have damage dealt Soul of Chaos, and you can kind of tell from my gear that some things I just didn't find yet. I did have MP cost flee because when I'm not doing bosses, I might actually want to just do flee. And so we'll say I sacrifice, I outside of this video, I do sacrifice damage just to have flee on, just so I can run through rifts, just like find gateway. I could run through that faster. And I just have reduced cost while I'm doing that. Intellect, our main way of dealing damage. I do have during Lightbringer damage dealt because we're always going to be in Lightbringer or we're dead. Action ability MP cost, because there's no such thing in this game, at least legitimately, MP cost Soul of Chaos. That does not exist. We're going to reduce the Soul of Chaos cost with action ability MP cost. So instead of consuming a full 3 bars worth of MP, a max MP, that might be cut in half. We might only do 1.5 bars. Heads up, you still need 3 bars of MP to actually cast the spell, so that part's inconvenient. Something that we do have on every single piece of gear is remove. That brings out intellect from your jobs. In this case, Cyclic Warrior gets a decent amount of intellect. It also brings out some spirit. Unfortunately, Cyclic Warrior gets some of the crappiest spirit in the game for a job that has stat bonus spirit. I don't know why the devs did that I'm sorry, this is not a rant. Knight and Cyclic Warrior, I will stop there. This is not supposed to be a rant. Let's keep going. So, we have MP cost Lunatic because sometimes I actually use Lunatic on this job, especially when enemy attack deplete buffs manages to knock me out of it. Another thing that we have that's extremely important is status ailment resistance. And between our 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 Primal Warrior tree and our gear, we have 100%, or at least I think we do. Actually, we don't. Hold on, let's look at this for a moment. I am barely missing the status ailment resistance I need to avoid getting silenced. Because if we get silenced, we can't use our Lightbringer, we can't use our job action, we can't refresh, we can't survive. I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. We can't survive and watch TV if we get silenced. So uh, we want to avoid getting silenced. We want to avoid paralysis, petrification. Also, if we get slowed down, we die. So we don't want to get slowed um, because then we can't use our job action as quickly and they might hit us through all of the haste and all this other fun stuff. So I will correct that during the master points. We will uh, get 100% status ailment resistance there. But for the most part, on every single other piece of gear, I have damage dealt, Soul of Chaos, action ability, MP cost, intellect, and remove, with one exception. Uh, I on my just one piece of gear, I have Phoenix, so that if something goes catastrophically wrong, I can revive one time, or actually more than once, because Solar Chaos hits them so friggin' hard. Chaos Rising hits them so hard that you might get your Phoenix back pretty quickly, and you'll be between the realm of life and death if things get really bad. Some other things I do have are the During Lightbringer damage dealt, just on some of my other pieces. And we'll say that you could find some promise just using Spirit. If your damage dealt Soul of Chaos is really high, that you could actually get some decent mileage out of Spirit that will then afflict the weakness on the enemy sooner and do more damage that way. So uh, some room there, but I chose During Lightbringer damage dealt. Let's see. Now, I really should fix this before I go on to the next job, but we're going to go on to the next job. The monk is here because monk master, or just either of the monks, uh, it says that, hey, increase the amount of break damage dealt to enemies. What that really should have said was it increases the damage dealt to the enemies, and as a result of the damage dealt, I'm sorry, this is not the part it should have said. As a result of the increased damage dealt, you also do break damage dealt, and it affects physical attacks and magic attacks. So for magic builds and break damage builds, this is very good. For physical damage builds, it's still very good, but Hunter and Analyze would be better. But this is not the physical build. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said all that. Let's keep going. So this is a giant boost, 4 stages, and you can boost that even further by having improved effect focus across your monk gear, so that instead of getting like 120% damage dealt on the fourth charge, you get like 360% damage dealt on that charge instead. And maybe just to help that out a little bit, you might have things like charge time reduction focus, or, I'm sorry, and or Red Mage 250% to reduce the charge time. Sort of a heads up, Red Mage 250% does not affect the attack speed of Soul of Chaos. It is not, even though I said spell, it is not something that actually gets reduced by, and I need to just bite my tongue for a moment and keep going with the video, because there was some bickering over that. So let's keep going. Uh, Improved effect focus on every single piece of gear on the monk. Lightbringer duration is a side effect at this point now, as is buff duration. Uh, and we will back up a little bit. I do have improved effect barrage on every single piece of gear, but if you're using bravery, then you might have improved effect bravery on every single piece of gear. Heads up, improved effect summon Tachi increases both your damage dealt and the damage taken multiplicatively. So it is entirely possible to screw yourself so hard that you end up taking times two damage from enemies. So that is very painful to invest in and find out the hard way. But I did when I originally climbed the floor 300 on my PlayStation save. But I digress. Improved effect barrage is the route that we're going here. Something else that I do have specific to the world map and also for co-oping or for very slow riffs are I have Summoner 120% on the monk so that I can do a chain cancel. That is changing your job in the middle of an animation. You get some max MP when you have these. Summoner 120%. The Summoner job affinity does not unlock until you clear the first DLC fight with Bahamut. You have to defeat him and unlock the Summoner job, and at that, which requires you to talk to him after you beat him. And at that point, Summoner starts to drop. But I digress. If you're this far in the game, most likely you have already talked to him, and Summoner has been dropping. But just sort of the heads up for anyone that's like trying to see where does this go, and why is this guy taking like 30 minutes before we actually get to fight anything? Um, Sorry for shouting. ASMR is not friendly on this one. So the chain cancel. Another thing that we have is Gambler 120%, so that we recover a random amount of MP when we chain cancel based on our luck. And this isn't always going to leave us with a surplus of MP, but the hope is that with more luck and also reduced action costs on our focus, even though we don't have very much, that we're going to come out ahead if we don't have Dragon Trials on. This is more so for co-op and world map when you might not have a crapload of MP and you cannot control whether or not the host is going to use a Mega Elixir or if they're going to use cubes to get your max MP your MP restored before you go into a fight. So Gambler 120% and Summoner 120% cover you there. And then I just specific to the monk, I have 250% on the red mage. And then because I do like the chain cancel, I have the samurai 250% to get this damage boost. It's about a 100% damage dealt boost that's going to help us when we start using our Soul of Chaos, Chaos Rising. And then, just to avoid death, I have Paladin 400%. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. To avoid getting silenced, not death, because I can very much die on my monk. Monk is where I'm the most vulnerable here. Uh, I have Paladin 400% so that at the very least, if I get tapped by something and there's stupid trials, not stupid, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. There are suffer, ailment, on attack trials on, that I don't get silenced, paralyzed, petrified, slowed, or poisoned, or any of that other stuff. But if I do take a physical hit, I'm probably going to die. And I accept that. I bring it. Um, Now, the reason why we take on that risk is to get even more damage. And the damage that we do is from this enemy ability, Inky Envy. It'll show up on Water Prayers and Lump of Pure Envy, either from Kraken, or from the Chaos Kraken. Uh, and Inky Envy throws. I think other people have told me that it was the shell, and my name's the shell. Sorry, Ben, shut up. Keep going. And deprotect. So enemies are going to take more damage multiplicatively, or in a separate bucket than other debuffs. So Inky Envy is kind of like Mighty Strikes in that way, except that it works for all damage, and the enemy can't resist it. They just can't resist an Inky Envy to the face, and they'll end up taking like 25, maybe 28% more damage across the board for 15 seconds. And the great thing is no trial can reduce that, so they're going to get hurt by it. As a result, I do have Inky Envy on my enemy ability. I'm sorry, as my first combo ability, so I can Inky Envy an enemy, chain cancel, and go to town. Now, you probably won't see me do this mid-combat because I don't have a way to survive if they hit me. Yes, I have some HP, and yeah, I have a little bit of stamina, but man, will I get torn up. So you might not see me actually go for this unless it's during a Dimension Bringer or a phase change, and I suspect that the buff is going to last through the phase. I'm sorry, the debuff is going to last through the phase change. Also, a small heads up: this does not count towards Tyrant 400%. So it also doesn't count towards the friggin' Apocalypse Warrior. Oh, trigger additional attacks after inflicting vulnerability on a foe with Light's End. That does not trigger that, and I wish it would, but we'll call it probably an oversight. I digress. It doesn't. But it will boost our damage when we really want it. Oh my gosh. I think we're at the 30-minute mark at this point. Let's keep going. Uh, don't slow down now, Ben. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay. Let's look at our master points. I'm sorry. So one more thing about the monk is I do still have crap that lets me use Lightbringer spam if I really need to, or Dimension Bringer spam if I'm in a pinch and I just need to like get off of me. I need iframes. So that Cyclic Warrior 600%, the Void Knight 400%, and the Evoker 120% with a Leviathan primary blessing. That's still in my favor. And on top of that, I also have a lot of Lightbringer duration across my gear, so that when I do drop a bubble, it's going to last about 8 seconds if I don't have any dimension counts up. With trials, that might only be 5 seconds. But that's 5 seconds that might buy me enough time to get my bearings after I revive and all this other fun stuff. Some other crap I have on my gear is luck and buff duration. Luck so that my gambler 120% when I chain cancel recovers more MP that way. Buff duration just so I don't have to reapply focus, except on this build that's not an issue. But at least I have monk set up for a crapload of other builds. Oh gosh. Uh, okay, master points. Master points. Let's do this, Ben. We have Intellect maxed out all the way, and we have Cyclic Warrior Job Affinity maxed out because I want more Intellect. And you get more Intellect after you go past like 800% and beyond. It's just another way to get Intellect. So that is how I'm getting Intellect. And then we'll say that I have Spirit to really help out with accumulating the status effect just a little bit more. It's so small, but at the same time, the damage that we do with earthquake or tsunami is so much that we might accumulate pretty quickly. Um, so there's the spirit there, and I did some testing, and we'll say that damage up kicks in faster than saying having like damage dealt 60% on some of this other stuff. So, but you're welcome to try other routes and other stuff like that. I have Soul Shield damage dealt. At one point, this was very much high, but because I'm using my Chaos Rising, I get this buff for like 5 seconds, but it refreshes every Soul Shield. So yeah, it was more damage than I can get out of this with during Lightbringer damage dealt. Barely, but it's something that I get to use. So that's great. Now, I'm going to use this last point. It's almost like the game knew, or maybe I knew. No, I didn't. I'm sorry. Let's go down. Category 4, we have increased MP limit boost rate. We have our 1 point of status ailment resistance because I don't have 100% status ailment resistance without it. And then some of the leftovers, and this is just how important I thought action ability MP cost was to this build. I actually do have points in there to reduce the cost further. And then on the monk, I have luck built up, my luck, so that that Gambler 120% goes well. And then I have the Category 4 increase MP limit boost rate in case I do need the Lightbringer. And then if I do Lightbringer, Category 3 Lightbringer duration is way up there, so that the bubble lasts longer. And then the Soul Shield MP recovery just to help a little bit to get some MP back when I use Dimension Bringer on this job. All right, so that's the Jack side of this, even though I know Sophia's on the screen. Uh, let's look over at the actual Sophia. Let me get this out of the way. So, the real Sophia is here on our team with Ash. And pardon me, let's get our bearings. I'm losing my train of thought here. Get in the zone, Ben. Your allies are going to be stat sticks. That sounds really rude to them, but that's what they are at endgame for us. They are stat sticks. So I have intellect here on my job, and I have Sophia as a sage because the other jobs, except for Black Mage, don't get as much intellect when you invest fully. And she has how she's sharing her stats with us is through Liberator 600%. It shares 12% of their stats with you that for some reason does not show up on the UI, but if you peek behind the scenes on the PC, you'll see that you're actually getting 12% of her stats. And so she's giving us, we'll say, 120 intellect, which is no small feat. And after you get your 600% Liberator, you stack a crap load of Sage, uh, because Sage job affinity 800% and beyond brings out the most intellect and spirit out of your jobs as it can. And in this case, Sage on Sage, bringing out a lot of that stat. And then the Black Mage is just the way we're going to get even more intellect. And so after you've fused Sage on a piece of gear, then you get Black Mage on it if it's not one of the Liberator pieces. And now we have as much intellect as we do. Another thing that's helping out with that is the on every single piece of gear we have intellect, spirit, lightbringer duration, and remove. The spirit's separate, but I still want the contribution there. And then specific to Sage, she has damage dealt, magic sigil, and MP cost magic sigil, so that she gets to more or less cast her heart out when she's doing her stuff. And something that's going to help her do that, even though we don't really care too much, is Evoker 120%. Every Soul Shield restores MP to your allies, and her cost of her spells are basically cut down to a third. And the hope is that she's going to be casting as much as she wants. But yeah, we have remove all this other good stuff. We'll get into why the Lightbringer duration is there in a bit. She's not wearing pants. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. She's wearing pants as a result of her body armor that's covering chest and pants. So that's why it looks like. Why is there a green pants here? Boots. On the gear, Lionheart, how your allies stay alive. If they die, they do not give you the 12% stats. And so how they stay alive is going to be with a Lionheart accessory. For now, if you don't have Lionheart, then it'll be Knight 400% on their gear in two pieces, on two different pieces. Pardon me. And Invincible, when you press the direction pad left or right, if you're using a gamepad, I don't know what it is for the keyboard, but for D-pad left and right, they're going to be invincible for the duration of that. The game calls it resonance. And during resonance, that relies on your Lightbringer duration. So we have 150% Lightbringer duration, so that she might be invincible for I don't know, 50 seconds. And then if she does die, well, we can run over to her and give her a potion at some point. And the great thing is because we have Phoenix, our potions don't cost anything. I'm sorry, we don't consume a potion to revive our allies. So we finish breaking the boss or defeating the boss, run over to Sophia, revive her, and then she has another 50 seconds to go, usually, for this. So that's why we have the Lightbringer duration. And then we're using Ash as a Tyrant because he gets more intellect on Tyrant compared to the other jobs. Your other choice here would have been Jed as a Ninja, but I chose Ash because I maybe wanted the extra spirit also, and that I just haven't seen Ash in a while. I miss my buddy. So we have Intellect, Spirit, Lightbringer duration. You can tell that my gloves have not favored me on the Lightbringer duration drop. Uh, and then for some reason, oh, I know why. I don't have remove gloves that have perfect base job affinity, so I went with Phoenix. And maybe just as a side effect, Wolfo's primary blessing is Phoenix, so that if he ends up doing enough damage, he'll just revive himself, and that's great. But job affinities are pretty much the same as Sophia, and so will most of the gear effects, if not all of the gear effects. The exception at the top is just I don't know what Ash is going to do as a tyrant. He might enchant, he might do knuckle combo abilities, he might just dance back and forth. I've seen him do that on Zombie Dragon. He's just so scared to fight that he'll just dance back and forth for 20 seconds. And I'm like, Ash, please help me. Do something. He's like, I am doing something. I'm rocking out to this music. Okay. So that's Ash is here. Now, the thing that I don't care enough about is they don't have actual status ailment resistance. So they can very much get poisoned, silenced, petrified, all sorts of stuff. But as long as they're alive, I'm getting their stats. And that's what I care about. Okay. Oh my gosh. Who's going to watch this at this? Okay. I applaud you if anyone has watched this far, and this is why we have the timestamps to jump around. So, what are we doing here? We are making very, very unfriggin' comfortable trials. And we're only going to fight maybe one boss for now in the world map. Um, we're going to fight Marilith because she attacks kind of fast. Now, the setup for this is going to take a while, so we're going to talk a little bit about how we set this up. First, because this is world map and we have trials way beyond what is necessary, do not actually go and farm at rate 146. You don't need to do that. If you just want the gear drops, uh, rank 11 is sufficient. And some of the trials that we don't want here, if we had our choice, we don't want buff duration. Because even though Lightbringer is not a buff, like it doesn't get boosted by buff duration or divine sigil, but it certainly gets nerfed by it. So buff duration reduces Lightbringer duration, and then the max MP boost and recovery, that really hurts how much MP we get back with Solar Chaos. There's one thing I forgot to mention that we'll go back to. So this really hurts our MP recovery, and that's why we have excess MP recovery to deal with this. The command ability MP cost, that hurts us setting up, but once we get going, that doesn't affect us very much. We have status ailment resistance at 100%, so we don't care about suffer ailment when taking damage. Enemy stats on the world map and in the Rift, they suck for us, because that means we need even more intellect to make a difference. And then enemy attack depletes buffs. This is something that has caused people to actually just like uninstall the game at floor 130. This will really hurt your survivability on any build that face tanks. So uh, that sucks. And max HP reduction also sucks for not for our build. We don't care anymore on that one. So the ones that we try to avoid are buff duration, max MP boost and recovery, as well as enemy attack deplete buffs and enemy stats. And then, of course, negate all armor effects. That just completely kills your build. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. That changes what builds you have access to, and those builds do not play well with mission level plus 5 or 180. So, routine, what we're going to try to do here is we're going to uh, chain cancel with focus because we're on the world map, and we're going to use Summoner 120% Job Affinity to get some max MP, and Gambler 120% to recover regular MP. Now, at some point, we might have to touch the cubes. Uh, Now, something I wish I could kind of point out, these are, even though it looks like a giant sphere, those are tiny. Never mind. Let's keep going. That's why they call it cubes. Look, cubes. Spherical cubes. Now, that doesn't explain the protosphere. I'm sorry, the protocube, which is literally a sphere. Okay, I'm sorry. So I chain canceled the full. I'm going to touch the cubes in case I really mess up and actually die, because that would suck. And then I have to go and edit the video and pretend like none of that happened and be like, hi guys. Um, but we're going to do, we'll call it Lunatic and Teleport. Try to do a Lightbringer, Barrage. We can't even do another Lightbringer here. But we're trying to get all of our buffs up, which is really hard to do. Sorry, I can't actually talk and do all this at the same time. I'm going to do an Inky Envy. Whoops. Oh, my shoot. Also, be very careful when you change a phase. I'm sorry. I couldn't talk through all of that because there's too much pressure, dudes. Um, so I tried to get my buffs up. I also relied on my Dimension Bringer to recover MP, as well as my Focus Chain Cancel to recover MP. I focused all the way to full. I tried to do a little Chain Cancel, and then I tried to go for my job action, and I make sure that I'm pointing on the Earthquake and then doing the Earthquake. Now, I could have explained all that better, but I was mentally flustered and I friggin' panicked. And I'd love to do that again, but I don't feel like re-recording any of this or even editing. Dude, you're just lazy. Also, one time I spent 6 hours editing, and all I managed to do was shave like 6 minutes off the video time. So I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm just gonna leave it in there. Okay, monsters. So that was the world map, roughly. Monsters, I don't need the potions. I'm just going to use them anyway. I'm sorry, I'm buying them anyway. Your monsters in the Rift, um, we can go about this in a few different ways, but the ones that I recommend are the horse. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the type of horse that is, uh, because there's intellect. You get intellect, that's how you do damage. You also get a little bit of magic damage dealt, whoopee-doo. And then if you have mage and black mage job built up, you get more intellect from that if they are built up. And then you have the eye, the floating eye, the Ahriman, for the intellect. And then if you have sage job and void knight built up, you get more intellect out of that too, and some spirit too. And then the During Lightbringer damage dealt, just that does help a little bit. I have the Behemoth out so that I get the damage dealt to bosses, just an extra 39%. That's nice. Uh, we're not really going to benefit too much from the combo ability stat bonus, and I'm not going to talk about the reduced stat bonuses because that's just a rant that just goes down a really deep dark hole. Um, just know that don't worry about it. Just in short, don't worry about that. Uh, that's not going to impact us. Sorry, you said you weren't going to talk about it. Keep going. Soul Shield MP recovery, that helps us a little bit out in the Rift. Uh, and then I chose Bomb for the damage dealt to bosses, but also I could have used the Marlboro for the extra spirits, and that might help out too. And the evoker could have been nice if I built that up even more, but I didn't. So the bomb is here for the damage dealt to bosses, and then Coral is here for the spirit and the magic resistance. No, he's not. That's not why he's here. He's actually here because increased monster quest efficiency. I'm sorry, she's here. I think it is. I'm sorry. Let's keep going. Increased monster quest efficiency so that you get more credit per monster defeat or kill or chaos monster, all this other stuff. And then as a bonus, if you happen to have White Mage and Tyrant built up, your White Mage is going to revive you, and you get a little bit more spirit there. And your Tyrant, if that's built up, you get Intellect. And you also start to critical hit enemies, which we don't care about because we don't have any critical MP recovery, and we just not going to rely on that. But we do get the Intellect, and that's nice. Also, we get the status ailment accumulation, which is very nice, given that we haven't invested anything in it. So, what do we do here? First, we're going to inspect this rift because this is kind of scary. And oh wait, this is not enemy attack depletes buffs, man. Anywho, there's enemy stats plus 40 and some max MP boost and recovery trials. So that's going to be inconvenient enough to demonstrate some of this. But I thought I scoped this out. Well, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to re-record this video or edit. We're just going to go. This is now a podcast. No, it's not. Okay, so before we go in there, we're going to drink a Mega Ether. We want to, in the lobby, we're just going to drink it right now. And now we have enough MP to really get started. But something that we are going to do here, normally I would love to buff up on the second job and get going. But the most important thing here is actually getting your Lightbringer going so that you don't die in one hit. So I am going to do Lunatic. I might just do a tier 1 focus and then switch to Cyclic Warrior and hit nothing just so that I have my my Lightbringer going. And then I'm going to hurt the boss. Maybe weave in a teleport and all of that. Avoid barrage because my barrage is going to be on the monk, so that's the one I want to boost. I want to use monk to actually activate the effect. Because if you activate it on the job that doesn't have improved effect and you switch to the job that does, when you refresh the buff duration, it doesn't actually do the improved effect version. It's still refreshing the unimproved version. So that sucks. So, yeah. And then, after the first phase, after the boss is like beat up, then I'm going to focus the full. And I might even use Inky Envy on the boss. So the, whoops, I'm sorry. The Inky Envy. I might use that just before the phase change and soul burst the boss. And with any luck, it'll stick to the boss as they start the next phase. And I'll just start off that phase and hit them and hurt them pretty good too. So we're going to do all this. Timestamp here somewhere. All this good stuff. Oh my gosh. Can we finish this before a whole hour? Please don't crash, computer. So wait, Lunatic, tier 1 focus. And now we do... Oh my gosh, I accidentally did the barrage. Oh my gosh, I'm messing up so bad. Ben, get it together. See, the sucky thing about the barrage here is that it's not going to fall off because I'm refreshing it. Ah, oh, darn. Come on, Neon. Okay. And now while we're waiting for the next boss to show up, that's when we focus to full. But man, did I screw up. I used barrage on the wrong job. The improved effect barrage was supposed to try to... No, never mind. Just focus up to full. And yeah, this is how. Oh my gosh, what's going on? And I don't know if it's showing up on my screen. I hope the mic is on this whole time because that would be so. I actually recorded a whole video one time with the mic. Shut up. Okay. Inky Envy on the phase change. She's too far away. Ash is dead. Sophia's dead. And I realized that was really messy, and I'm just like not fully explaining things while I'm doing it. It's just earthquake, 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 earthquake. Um, Now, something I probably should show, given that this video is as long as it is, and it might not work out the way I hope, is Blackjack. One other thing you can do, and this is just pure RNG at this point, so that's the part that I don't like about this. And I probably should just do this in a separate video, but Blackjack is a way to be invincible during all of this stuff. And let's see here. So I'm not going to do the full. I'm not going to do the full. Sorry, I'm not thinking straight. What am I trying to say here? Enemy attacks deplete buffs. That sucks. And one way to deal with that is through RNG. Use RNG to counter it with Blackjack. And if you're on the world map, you can try Blackjack and do... Whoops. Oh, I messed up really bad. Ideally, you might have something that lets you just keep doing little combo abilities. Now, Solar Chaos doesn't count. And let's see if I can get 21. Nope. Ah, darn it. In short, if you get 21, you can tell it's been a while. Chakra gets rid of this. If this doesn't work, just take my word for it that it refreshes. All right. Oh my gosh, we got okay, dudes. Okay, so we do lunatic barrage this, and then we do the blackjack, and then we start casting. And if I let the enemy actually hit me, maybe that's the other issue is I need the enemy to actually hit me. In short, they cannot touch me. And normally you won't be able to soul shield to refresh your buff duration, but I still can. Who was he hitting? Okay, we might actually go through with all 5 boss fights because why not? And now with the way we're set up, I did do the max MP recovery thing just for convenience so I wouldn't have to chain cancel as much. But now that we're set up, we could keep refreshing the invincibility. And it wouldn't matter what they do. They can't dispel us. They can't touch us. They can't grab us either. So maybe during Chaos Lich will try to see. Try to dispel me. Stop punching yourself, Sophia. Ah! Okay. Uh-oh. Did I mention my inventory was full? Oh, whoop. No, not Whirlwind. No, not Whirlwind. And we lost a lot of stats with Ash dying. Whoops, wrong job. I don't even know where she is. Oh, and now we can actually apply Inky Envy on the monk a little safer. Also, our GPU is screaming and heating up our room. Chaos Lich, can you grab me? See what happens when you try to grab me. That's fine. We're using Earth to attack the Fiend of Earth that is floating in the air. Oh, shoot! At some point... Wait. Did I hear a soul shield sound? Am I still invincible? You know, I can't actually see my my buffs on the screen. Okay, yeah, no, I have to check the Oh, I don't have teleport. Oh. That's why I thought I got debuffed. Look at all this loot. Gosh darn it. Just get over here. Squidward, no! Okay. And yeah, so that's Blackjack, and if you're in the Rift, you are at the mercy of RNG in the middle of friggin' combat to get that going. Gosh darn it. I won't be able to... Okay, so we're going to end this video, but not before I look at not before I look at what dropped, just for a little moment to see if I'm way over the inventory limit. And if I am, I'm going to... Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I'm losing it. So, yeah, that is how this might work. And you might not see another build video for a while until I sort through my friggin' gear. Because I am at the limit. But yeah, maybe in the future we will try a different build. So yeah, until next time, if anyone watched for the full hour and 3 minutes, thank you. That's amazing. But yeah, this is the endgame Cyclic Warrior caster build.